Welcome back to Football 301. I am your host, Nate Tice. We are going to be recapping week 5 through the lens of some struggling teams or units. A couple of them won, but we still want to talk about it. And we're going to be looking at, do we think these units or teams could use a Band-Aid, or are they just broken? There's one team in particular that we were going to talk about anyways that kind of led us to our answer, which is going to be pretty nice. But to help me do that, to determine whether these teams or units need a Band-Aid or if they are just simply broken, a tape job will not do, Mr. Matt Harmon will be joining me to do that. How are you doing today, Matt?
Oh, Nate, I'm good. Yeah, this is, you're almost destined to be wrong in some way when you're doing an exercise like this, because, you know, look, there's only two paths, right? Band-Aid or broken. I normally don't have a good sense of where I'm at from an injury or health perspective anyways, as a stupid, maybe egotistical man. I'm like, no, we're fine. Like, this is no big deal. Like, we can play through this. We can keep on pushing. And then I inevitably make myself either more sick or more injured than I already was. So I might not be the best person for this, but maybe it'll be easier to criticize people on the outside instead of being introspective.
I love that you say that right after in the pre-show. I go, man, I just can't shake this runny nose. I don't know if it's a cold or, you know, whatever it is. Might be allergies. Oh, well. We'll see. We'll see how I end up. So yeah, if you hear me throughout the week getting worse, it's not getting better. But no, that's what's fun. Only giving two options with this. It is kind of, there's no rub some dirt on it option. So we're just saying a Band-Aid, you know, just determining how, if that bullet hole is a little too big, that the Band-Aid doesn't work, that you might need a little bit more, you know, a little bit more gauze on it. We did an autopsy last week with one of these teams. So really just all the medical terms. We're just going to just bring them all in for some of these units and teams. On this week's Thursday show, though, we are going to be answering some mailbag questions. So make sure you send in those questions. We'll answer them here on Thursday at the end of the show with Charles. Football 301 mailbag at yahoosports.com to send in those mailbag questions. I'll tweet something as well. Send in those emails, reply to the tweet. Let's hear from you guys. It's been a little bit. I think it's going to be a lot of fun now that we're into October. So, like I said before, we're going to try to fix some broken units, see if we can fix them, or some broken teams, just determine maybe what some of the causes for this and whether they can be fixed. But before we do that, we're going to do real quick Monday Night Football recap with the Saints and the Chiefs. The Chiefs won this game 26-13. Plenty of Taylor Swift backup dancers, which actually was relevant. Holy crap. They probably, that package was Saunders' brother. And then with Taylor Swift, like, couldn't have happened at a better time. Like, the timing of that, they must have just been, the producers just must have been freaking out with Monday Night Football. So, the interesting game. Mahomes was totally in control. The run game for the Chiefs continues to be a super strength for them. They were one of the few teams over 50% on running back runs going into that week, and they still maintained a good run game with Kareem Hunt and Carson Steele and Samaje Perine, just guys off the street. Sure, we'll just get a good run game there. But when you watch this Monday Night Football game, Matt, did you have any takeaways other than that the Chiefs just keep churning along? Anything on the Saints?
Well, yeah, the Saints in a second. Yeah, the Chiefs keep churning along with dudes from like the 2018, 2017 roster. And then, I mean, obviously the Juju Smith-Schuster stuff is so interesting because I think you and I, Nate, have talked about Rashee Rice and how from a reception perception standpoint, he profiles so cleanly to early career Juju Smith-Schuster. Now, I didn't necessarily think we could take the new model and put in the we'll call it vintage original model in Juju Smith-Schuster and just get that same production. But we did. And you know, it's just kind of like, those are some replaceable routes that Rashee Rice can run. I mean, Rice, I know Juju had a couple of big plays. He averaged over 11 yards after the catch per reception in this game, which is, again, very much like the calling card of his early career. But I mean, I think that Rice gives them more juice probably on a full season basis than Juju does, but he can still run those routes. And again, those are some replaceable routes in the playbook. Like, as long as we have dudes clearing out space, which they do, and Xavier Worthy he's not a guy that's getting a ton of footballs thrown his way on like base NFL routes, but he is clearing space for this team. And as long as they have that, like, Juju can be a productive player for this team. So that was definitely interesting from that perspective to, like I said, take the new model out and put the OG vintage model in Juju in that power slot role for the Kansas City Chiefs. On the Saints side, man, it definitely feels like the first 2 weeks of the season was like a different lifetime.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. And I was excited about what we saw, but after offensive line injuries and just, I think this happens, Nate, right? With these Shanahan trees that they push the right buttons, right? They push the motion, they push the play action, the under center stuff, a good zone-based run team. I mean, look, that works, but teams know how to defend this stuff eventually. These are not cheat code plays like they're presented as. And when you do it against the Panthers and then you go against a Chiefs defense that's well coached with a bunch of physical players up front, and again, you have had offensive line injuries, that can start to kind of trickle away pretty fast.
Yeah, start with the Juju stuff. All last year, I kept what's the issue with the Chiefs for pass game? First off, it was like, watch the offensive line. That'll lead to a lot of the issues. That was also happening with the pass catchers. I just kept saying, it's like, they need a Juju Smith-Schuster. Like, they need just that zone beater, that guy that's just the big body over the middle. They'll get the simple yak yards. I thought even this year, if he came along, even in a game like this, it'll be like a 4-catch for 38 yards and 3 first downs. Like, that's how I picture, those, not 100+ yards. Of course, some of that was some of the situations that he ended up getting the ball, but he's going to have a role in this offense. And I'm glad he brought up Worthy. And this is something we talked about, where Worthy's not going to be a 1-to-1 replacement for Rice. Is Worthy has really some gravity in this offense that really opens up things. If Travis Kelce being wide open in the middle of the field early on in the game.
Yeah.
When you got 4-2 guy taking 2 guys, that really helps out everybody else. I mean, they trot out tight ends every single snap, which I honestly thought was good coaching from Reed. Just like, hey, we don't got the guys, don't use them. Let's use the guys that we can trust. Mahomes was a machine underneath. Next Gen Stats had a great tweet about it. Mahomes accumulated near all of his passing protection attempts under 15 air yards. 300 of his 331 yards were under 15 air yards. Did not throw a single tight window throw on 39 pass attempts. It felt like easy pickings for them. And again, when they have a sustainable run game, they can figure out the pass game as long as that run game kind of keeps them above level. But what you're talking about with the Saints, though, that O-line injuries, if they get a negative game script like that early turnover where Carr was throwing it kind of away, I think, that didn't get there all the way. Yeah. If he said he was throwing it away, I might give it to him, but I don't know. That was just a little iffy. I think he was trying something there, and that you can't have that. They need to be in a positive or a neutral game script so they can keep running the ball, keep running zones. The Chiefs' run defense is actually pretty good this year, which is usually a thorn in the side for a Spags defense. That's usually how you kind of pick at them. You just jab them in the run game. Getting that negative game script, you're not really churning the ball outside of, or running the ball consistently or moving the ball consistently. You're relying on Rashid Shaheed deep balls. It's going to feel like that. That's exactly how that offense felt. And really, after the first couple of weeks, it was like, all right, how do they adjust when defenses adjust? Because now that you're off that summer scouting of the first couple of weeks, and now it seems like defenses are going like, oh yeah, we know the formula. Get them to 3rd and long, and then just really funky it up. But Chiefs are a good team. The O-line's playing real well. Mahomes is Mahomes. They'll figure out the passing game. The run game's good, and they still have Spags in that defense. Like, this is still a Class C team. I'll put them at, obviously, they're 5-0. All right, but going on, don't think any of them, Chiefs are not broken to me. I don't think they even need much of a Band-Aid. I think they figured it out. His name's Juju Smith-Schuster for a while.
Juju Smith-Schuster is the Band-Aid.
He's the Band-Aid.
And Kareem Hunt, again, Mecole Hardman, all the old faces. Like, I mean, the Bills have too many wide receivers. They might as well call up about MVS at this point. Like, see what he's got going on.
Getting old reliable there. I know. Yeah, instead of Johnson and Johnson, it's Juju and Juju Band-Aids. Speaking of Johnson and Johnson, how about that? Talk about the Jets real quick.
What a pro.
Talk about the Jets real quick. Yeah, just shoehorn that segue in. So the Jets, all the way coming from London, which happened, Sunday morning, American time, East Coast time. It was 9:30. Lose the game to the Vikings. Some interesting moments happened with the Jets offense, I would say. Thought the Jets defense played well. And then here we are Tuesday morning, all waking up to Robert Saleh, head coach of the Jets, now fired with a career record of 20-36. They are entering week 6 with a chance for the lead in the AFC East against the Bills. What are your thoughts? I'll just go there. What was your first takeaway about Robert Saleh now entering the unemployment line as a coach, even though the defense, which, I know he's not a defensive coordinator, but he has a lot of say on that defense doing well. So what do you think about this, Matt?
Yeah, so in a weird way, my first reaction when I saw the notification pop up on the phone was literally out loud. I said, holy I mean, because it was definitely a surprise. At the same time, though, like I said, I'm going to contradict myself there and say it's not that surprising, even though the initial reaction is one of shock. Just because, like, for one, the second that Rodgers in the press conference, kind of pushes back on Saleh and the whole cadence comment, right away, I'm like, oh, this is not good. This is something's like when there's smoke, there's fire. With the Thursday night game when they're blowing out the Patriots and Rodgers kind of like pushes off Saleh, like that like hug he tries to give him. There was obviously something going on there. And again, when clearly the most powerful person in that building beyond the owner is the quarterback, is Aaron Rodgers. You look no further than who the offensive coordinator is, who's the number 2 wide receiver. We know the deal with the Rodgers stuff. Like, we don't need to rehash everything that everybody already knows. He obviously has more sway in that building than Saleh. So if there was any sort of like, hey, we need to put a Band-Aid on this, it's not let's pick at what Aaron likes to do. It's let's get rid of the head coach. So I'm not, like, in that way, I wasn't all that surprised. And also, just again, you look at Saleh's record. I'm with you. Like, obviously the Jets defense is fantastic, but you are the head coach. I think we get stuck on this too much on the outside of like, well, the side of the ball that he is responsible from, like that's why he got this job is good. Like, why are we firing this guy? Well, and again, I realize what I just said there, that the reason the offense coordinator is in place is because of the quarterback and all of this stuff. That's a tangled knot. But regardless of that, the buck does stop with you. You have the record that you do. You're performing the way that you do. I think this team looks like a poorly coached team, mostly on the offensive side of the ball, but still, again, you are the head football coach. You are accountable for the entire operation. The entire operation has not been good under the Robert Saleh era, and like, that is just a fact. Whether it's all his fault or whatever is kind of a separate discussion, but just like in that reality, it's not that surprising to see this head coach get let go.
It's a tough situation because you want a talent like Aaron Rodgers in there. But then, we think of like, sometimes guys have a posse or they have a group with them, an entourage with them. Rodgers is more like, his auxiliary characters around him, the Hackett's, the Allen Lazards, the, Malachi Corley, the 3rd round pick that obviously is a Rodgers favorite because he won't stop talking about him, who was a healthy scratch this past weekend, I might add. So you said it's, it's kind of all tied together. It's hard. It's a knot. It is very knotty. And how I kind of determined this, like, because I want to say Saleh has an influence on the defense, and it's like, yeah, as a head coach, you have to say something on the offense. Sean McVay having a bad defense, I don't let Sean McVay get away with it. You hire the defensive coordinator, you do this, you have say on personnel, you actually have influence on this. There with the Jets is just so interesting because it's truly Joe Douglas has a lot of say, the GM, and he's still there. But then they bring in Rodgers, and he brings in all of the guys that he wants, play callers, the auxiliary players. They get a lot of vets to kind of patch over things. I don't know, like, how much I put on Saleh there because I could tell it all went over his head. Like, this is just how it goes. Every building, the politics are different. If you're in New England for the last 20 years, it's Bill Belichick and then Bill Belichick, and then the third in command is Bill Belichick. So it's easy to just, go through that hierarchy there. Every team is so different. Every team, how they treat their quarterback is so different. Some quarterbacks, like Matt Ryan, when I was with him in Atlanta, he has, he's the god of the building. Everything is to protect Matt Ryan. And Matt Ryan could do whatever he wants there. Great guy too, but he could just do whatever he wants there. And yeah, that makes sense because it's Matt Ryan. Rodgers comes in. It's not like he's been there for 15 years. This is a new head coach. This is for him. This is new interactions with other players that he's, it's not him that's established himself from day one there. So it's just the chemistry of that and just the relationships there. It's hard to, pick apart like who I want to blame. I just think Saleh is in a no-win position unless they won games. But again, that reflects on him. And I thought the defense was doing some good things. And I want to kind of take a moment to rant about this Rodgers Hackett offense that is for sure running stuff from 2014. They're acting like the NFL hasn't evolved in 10 years. Like it's kind of crazy to me, actually. I should say 2016, 17. But anyone watch the game against the Broncos, Rodgers gets hit blindsided against a cover 0 look. They go against the Vikings this past week. He throws a pick against cover 0 to Van Ginkel, pick 6, and then he gets hit blindside again against the same blitz look. If this were a rookie, second year, third year quarterback, I would just be like, oh man, that's tough. It's tough. I get it. You double clutch. This is Rodgers, who I think is one of the most cerebral players to ever play the game that I've witnessed. So just his awareness, he wants things where everything's just static and set it, forget it, so he can, find his options and work from there. Use his mind to find the answers. This is the battle that LaFleur had with him. Matt LaFleur had with him in Green Bay. Like, let us use motion. It's going to help you out. It ended up working out, and they merged their offenses and he won 2 MVPs with this. But he throws the pick to Van Ginkel on the hot dropper. This is a staple of this defense, this cover 0 blitz with the hot droppers on it for 15 years, since the first iPod came out with Belichick. Like seriously, they've run that. Like, it used to just drive every offense mad. Like, no one had answers. Last few years when Flores went to Miami and he ran, remember when they played the Ravens on Thursday night? Yep. And the Ravens couldn't even operate an offense. Like, it was actually like embarrassing.
Non-functional,
non-functional offense. They literally ran cover 0 every snap, and the Ravens could not run an offense. That was the next year. Greg Roman, of all people, came up with like an answer to figure out how to beat this blitz, and others copied it. But why I'm getting frustrated, why I'm bringing up all Greg Roman and years, there's answers for this blitz out there that other offenses, including the Mac Jones, Matt Patricia Patriots, figured out how to beat this blitz. And that is what just is kind of, when he was on offensive call plays for Mac Jones. But this is, honestly, you motion the tight end across. There's other answers to this. They use the traditional answers that this defense is going to beat. Throw it hot. Let Aaron Rodgers just beat it with a hot throw. Well, they drop Van Ginkel right to where the hot, he's called literally a hot dropper, because he's going to where that's what it's called. It's called a hot dropper, going to where the hot route is. And then the last one where he gets whacked again from the blind side, that one is on Rodgers completely. And that one is more frustrating to me, because now you've seen this look last week. You saw this look earlier in the game. They run the same blitz. And even me watching this, I know that there's answers to it, protection sense and throwing sense. You have to know you're hot there as a quarterback. You have to know that, hey, if there's 4 coming to the running back side, 4 pass rushers, we only have 3 over here. We have the left guard, left tackle, and the running back. As a quarterback, I know, hey, if Harrison Smith blitzes, I have to either drift away or I have to throw it right away. Rodgers does neither. He just stands flat-footed in the pocket and just takes the shot. And yeah, it's tough to get the ball in 1.5 seconds, everything, but this is why you bring Aaron Rodgers in. So he's supposed to figure out the answers. And that was just really disappointing to me, because that's a scouted look from that game. And even I know what the answers are. And then again, there's ways you can block it out. There's other answers you can do, but it was just like, he was like, no, I got it. And you don't got it anymore. And I don't know, that just shows a lack of detail, shows just a lot of faith that Rodgers will fix it. Rodgers will fix all this. You watch them against the Broncos. The Broncos knew all the changeups. They knew all the counters. They're like, okay, you're going to do this like pump and go. We got it. So I just think the run game's limited. The pass game is just from 10 years ago. They only have one real receiver in Garrett Wilson. So if you just double team him, no one else is beating you. It's just not a good operation right now on the offense, which is so crazy. Of course, that Saleh gets hit. I know he's the head coach and everything, but this is Hackett, Rodgers all the way, and it's just right now they don't have a ton of great answers, and it's kind of disappointing when I watch it. That was long rant.
No, I really wanted to let you cook there, and you cooked. You cooked the whole dish, and every bit of it was as tasty as the last. And
4-course meal there.
We're stuffed after that one. But like, you're so right to point this out, and like all this stuff that Flores and the Vikings are doing, it is difficult. It's tough to play against, and we've talked about that on the show. But that stuff is on tape. Like, nothing that they did against the Jets on Sunday morning was a shock. And the fact that you are bamboozled by it as a veteran quarterback and a veteran offensive coordinator, it is embarrassing. And I would say that the thing that stood out to me most, as you were saying there, is it comes back to they're a poorly coached team. And that's another thing too, is like, they walk into every game at a disadvantage because of who their offensive coordinator is. And we all know it. Everybody knows it. And then they can't stop shooting themselves in the foot with what would be like little tiny mistakes, like dropped passes from Alan Lazard, like okay, a missed assignment up front and you're just running straight into a brick wall in the run game. Or like Garrett Wilson, who's a player I really like, but he does have a chance. He does every now and again have a bit of a tendency to, all right, I got to run this route. Like I'm open. I'm going to keep getting open. Like I'm going to keep drifting myself open. And he's not quite where Rodgers wants him to be. And Rodgers is obviously very particular. So like, yes, he is open. That's charted as a successful route. Like he's getting separation, but the way he maintains the separation might just not be exactly what Rodgers wants. But like all this stuff are little tiny things, but they do all of them on top of coming into it with a coordinator who does not have them set up to succeed. And you bring up like the routes and the way the passing game is designed. That was driving me. I mean, oh my God, it was driving me nuts in the Patriots and the Broncos game. And it was having me about ready to tear out what little hair I have left during the Vikings game, man, because it's like, these are the routes that Garrett Wilson ran in weeks, the Patriots and the Broncos game. 62% of his routes are out routes, are slant routes, and 9 routes. And that is it, brother. Like we got nothing in the intermediate deep middle of the field. Like, and you look at the next gen route chart from the Vikings game, he had 22 targets and like 3 of them are over the middle of the field, like short and intermediate over the middle of the field. It's like, yeah, that's how you take 22 targets and get 101 yards out of them, because there's no runway routes, yards after catch opportunities, any of that stuff. And it's just wild to me, like that. Aaron Nagler made this point, who obviously covers the Packers, when we were talking with him on Twitter this morning. It's so bizarre that Aaron Rodgers clearly grew so sick of Mike McCarthy and the Mike McCarthy offense and the ISO routes and all this stuff that belongs in 2016 or whatever. And that's exactly what they're running with the Jets. It's so weird. Yeah, he like rebelled against the structure of that offense. LaFleur comes in and doesn't even do the full Gary Kubiak, the Shanahan button pushing that we just talked about with the Saints, but just like sprinkles that stuff, and he wins 2 MVPs. And now, like, obviously he got sick of that. And now he's back to doing what he hated before. It's bizarre.
He wants to have full, and I get it. I struggle with this because I get around quarterbacks and the best ones, and you want to trust them because they're so freaking good and special and amazing. Totally. And they're superhuman. So seriously, guys, like some of these guys are just insane at what they see and how they're able to take advantage of it. And so you want to trust that and give them confidence in what they're doing. But the thing was, this was an advantage 10 years ago, and now teams caught up. I tweeted it, but there's a sequence against the Broncos that was so telling. That classic tight end flat thing, the Broncos defenders teed off on it because they're just like, oh, we know this play. We scouted this. We even know the signal. And then they tried the changeups on it and they countered that. And that's where I'm like, okay, this is the second year you guys are with the Jets. So even if it's just Rodgers and Hackett who've been together for a while, but it's just, this is your second year. So even these guys that have been there for 2 years now, Lazard, Garrett Wilson, Conklin, I know he's been banged up, but all these guys, where's the layers? Where's the next step for this offense? And I just don't see it. And even the run game gets limited because he wants full control and be able to check into runs, everything's zone. So because that's just kind of an easy run to get to no matter what formation you're in. So because he wants full control, he's limiting the run menu now. It's just, I'm curious what happens. This is probably to rattle some cages and shake things up, obviously, but it's just, I don't know. It's not like they fired the OC. And that's going to be an interesting thing because I don't know what changes for them. I don't see Jordy Nelson walking through that door.
Yeah, I mean, even this was definitely the case watching it on Sunday. It was like this team is not a Davante Adams away from salvation. Like, I get it. You pluck Allen Lazard off the field and you put Davante Adams in there. Although are you taking Lazard off the field, or who are we taking off the field for Davante Adams? Because we know that's Rodgers' guy or whatever. Like, yes, theoretically, you put Adams in there, this offense will be better. Band-Aid or broken? Like, I do think this is broken. I do not think a Band-Aid, or this Band-Aid certainly is not what they need to apply to this to heal the flesh wound. This
turned into kind of like a middle ground for the Band-Aid broken superlative game we're doing. But yeah, it does feel just more broken. And like the Band-Aid's not just going to save this. This needs, rehab and full maybe surgery to fix up what's going on in this offense. Maybe an injection of talent.
Just one last thing on the run game, because you're right to point out the zone stuff. Last year in 2023, this is from Fantasy Points data. Breece Hall 3.06 yards per carry on zone run concepts, man gap concepts 6.3. Like, again, he's
always better at it. Even at Iowa State, this is where he got some Le'Veon Bell comparisons. It's because he was so good on duo, because he has such good vision, and he kind of has that stop-starty run style that can really play games for the linebackers. So when you're not, he's one of your better players, run the runs that are better for him. It's just, I don't know. But again, you can't only, the late Packers with LaFleur, with Rodgers, they implemented more duo. Because it tied in some other stuff they did. They stole it from the Bucs. Even LaFleur told that. He said they played them, so they stole some Arian stuff. Incredible. Hey, coach admitting that he steals stuff, I'm like all for it, because so many guys act like they just came up with it in a dream or in the shower. It's like, come on, I watched that offense too, guys. But but again, that was a merger of ideas. Right now, they're just kind of doing the base ideas, and I don't know who's going to tell them that you have to evolve, and it'll be interesting, as everything is with the New York Jets. But that was our first team that we're talking about for Band-Aid or Broken. We're going to come back after the break with a few more teams, and we're going to determine how big of a wound they have. All right, we are back, and we are going to continue with our Band-Aid or Broken little game that we're doing. We're going to go to the Bills offense, who just lost to the Texans. Entertaining game. Kind of went back and forth for a little bit. I know score was in the highest scoring game, but there's some interesting stuff. I just want to, before we talk about the Bills offense, CJ Stroud's incredible. I'm going to be writing about him this week. Oh my God. It might be my favorite player in the league. Holy crap. Yeah. I'm writing about him this week though. So check that out on Yahoo. CJ Stroud's incredible. So look for that. But talk about the Bills offense and that performance. Matt, this is some things that we've talked about before. But are you saying, do you think this Bills offense is broken, or do you think there are some Band-Aids that they could apply and keep this thing going?
Yeah, this one's tough because it's kind of, it really is in the middle to me. And it's like, I think they definitely need a Band-Aid, but it's one of those, big ass patch Band-Aids, right? When you have like this cut, if I put a Band-Aid on it, I'm going to irritate the actual wound when I rip this thing off. Like I for sure need a patch over this thing. And that's,
it's like road rash that might get infected.
Yeah.
100%. You just want to patch it up.
We got to like shave the hair down in the area to apply this patch, because otherwise it's going to be a really, really unfortunate thing to take off. I may or may not have dealt with this situation myself,
I know, I can see it. Right?
I might have just had a situation like this recently. Anyways, that I like I mentioned at the top, did not take seriously enough too quickly. So, this is my life. But anyways, the tough thing with this here is, Josh Allen in this game against the damn Texans has like a box score that you keep like thinking the API has the information wrong, 9 for 30. You're like, wait a second, like refresh, obviously yahoosports.com, refresh the box score. Like, why is this not updating? And no, he really did complete 9 of 30 passes. And a lot of it are the issues that we have talked about with this team before, is that they do, like anyone out there, the small vocal minority that's like receiver separation or route running doesn't matter. What matters is this. Watch the Bills offense right now. Watch the outside wide receivers. They are getting, I know Keon Coleman had a 49-yard touchdown, kind of a catch and run play, which was pretty sick. That was a good moment by him. He's a young, growing player, not a guy that is ready to rock right now. They're getting like nothing from a down-to-down basis from these perimeter wide receivers. And the reason that I think it's hard to say whether this is broken, because that sounds like a broken problem, if it's broken or Band-Aid, is because I think this is going to show up against good teams and good defenses like it has the last 2 weeks. The Ravens' pass defense is not what we're used to seeing from like an efficiency perspective. I think they're 20th in drop back success rate. They're still great at defending the run, but they have corners that can come up and beat you up if you don't have good receivers. And these Bills guys right now on the outside, Coleman, certainly Mac Hollins, MVS, like they're not getting separation. They're not where they need to be. It really dawned on me, Nate, actually watching this game, and I had it on the ISO screen here. There's a third down play where I think it was like a slot fade thing to Mac Hollins, and he either is, I don't think he's where he's supposed to be. He's not really like, again, it's a effed up play one way or another, whoever you want to put blame on. Incomplete pass. They go to punt on 4th down, and you know who's the punt gunner on the play? It's friggin' Mac Hollins. Like they've got a dude who's gunning punts down as one of their almost every down wide receivers at this point. Not what you want, man. And like, I get what they are kind of trying to do with Mac Hollins, but it's also kind of like we're at enough already with Mac Hollins at this point. So teams like the Ravens, teams like the Texans that have Derek Stingley and Kamari Lassiter playing really good ball for the most part as a starting rookie corner, I think these issues will really crop up. The Jets in week 6, Titans in week 7, those are problematic matchups potentially for this particular issue, because otherwise I think there's a lot of good things we've highlighted on this Bills offense. But if you don't have Khalil Shakir available, a player I really like, and then you for whatever reason cannot get Curtis Samuel on the field, which is, personally killing me. I have no investment in the Bills, and this is driving me nuts that they don't have Samuel as like a full-time player. You've got these guys on the perimeter. I do think that's going to be a big issue against good defenses.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. Like, just talking about, you got to think of the matchups that each team has, especially when they are trying to be a contender. And even if I thought that the Bills maybe take a half step back this year, I still think they're a good team. I like both units. I like the coaches and everything. But like Mac Hollins I'm going to compare him to a basketball player, and that's Robin Lopez. Not Brooke Lopez, Robin Lopez, the guy with the fro, because all he was known for at the end of his career was setting great screens. Like he's really good at setting screens. Like, that's what he was known for. Some offensive rebounding, but yeah, that's really why you had him in. He was just this great auxiliary guy. That's Mac Hollins at receiver. You want him blocking, use the term sacrificial X. He's sacrificial, just period. Like that. He's just a guy out there to do other things to help out the offense.
He's not even playing X for them either. They've just basically got Coleman
double moves. He got a double move dialed up for him. I couldn't believe it. It was a great concept too. It was Hank curl flat, ran the curl. He actually ran a good route, and then unhitched the wagon. Allen throws it decently. He just can't get under it. Oh man, yeah. So they have a lot of snaps and a lot of targets and a lot of plays designed right now. And I hate to use this term, but I'm going to use it, to losing players. Just using it like it's even like Curtis Samuel goes in and he runs a seam route. And I think he was supposed to run a dig on this play. And again, I don't want to blame it on Curtis Samuel, but again, that just shows the miscommunication that's happening in this offense. It's like a real big moment. You could tell Allen is excited to give him the ball in this play. And then something happened where he either ran the wrong route, the defense was a different structure, like it was a read route or something. James Cook and Samuel on a different play, both run a bubble route. And I think it was James Cook on that one. But Keon Coleman doesn't look at a now throw, which is like the quick slant. Doesn't look. It hits him right in the face. There's a bootleg concept where Dawson Knox gets too deep, and he's supposed to be the hot route. So if Josh Allen gets pressured, that's where he can dig the ball. So Josh Allen gets pressured right away, and all of a sudden he has to throw it away because he has to kind of try and create something. So you have a lot of these plays where no one feels reliable, and that. Isn't that the best compliment we can give Khalil Shakir? That's why I like him coming out of Boise State. He's Mr. Reliable. He catches every football, but just even from a assignment standpoint, he does everything really well. He is reliable. And when a quarterback doesn't have that guy, we always talk about the explosive guy. Oh man, they don't have this guy that can create the explosive play. Sometimes you just need the guy that's like, I know he's going to be here at 7 yards. I can hit him. And I know he's going to catch the ball. And quarterbacks, and Josh Allen looked antsy this game. He looked really antsy. Like, some pressure got there early, but he was bailing early. And after what he looked like last year and early in this year, that it was like, oh, we're back to this, Josh. We're back to this version of you. He just looked very antsy. And I think this is the first game where I feel like the play callers and his teammates maybe got a little spoiled by how much he makes their life easier. And I think now they're like, oh, we have to do this now? Oh, we have to sort everything out? Oh, we actually have to get open. And everyone dropped the ball, it felt like, around him. Not just Josh wasn't great either, but he was pressured 16 times. He only took 1 sack, which is impressive. He went 1 for 14 against pressure. Josh Allen, at one point in his career, was better against pressure than he was not pressured, which just shows how off this whole game was, that he couldn't even hit a single completion. He hit 1, which was a check down. They actually went for a good gain. But I just think that their best looks were jumbo personnel, where they had the 6 offensive linemen, less receivers. The run game still looked good. So I'm not saying, that's why I think I agree with you. I think it's a big Band-Aid, but until they clear Khalil Shakir back, they just have no one they can rely on the passing game. Even Dalton Kincaid, it's like, he's just there. He's just fine. He's fine. Yeah, but they're not it's not like where I'm like, wow, this guy's a real matchup issue. Like, wow, this guy, he can get open on a double move or something like that. So yeah, it just feels like this is the one where they didn't have a lot of teeth, and it really felt that way.
And I think it's going to feel that way sometimes with this offense. And that's why it is tough. Broken Band-Aid, I don't know. But I never want to see a team struggle, especially I really like Josh Allen. I'm a big fan. So it's just, I don't want to see this unit struggle. But the not having Khalil Shakir out there, and how we just had this conversation on the fantasy film room about him being like a quarterback settling receiver, and like why that archetype is so important, especially against good defenses, modern defenses that will throw a ton at you. And the Texans have been throwing a lot more at teams than DeMeco Ryans usually does, which has been pretty cool to watch. Definitely put the Bills in the blender a couple of times on this. That was very validating for that conversation. But yeah, I think in terms of actual fixes though, like if I want to be solution based, the one thing I would say is, it's tough when you come into the season and you're thinking like our most dynamic pass catcher will be our tight end. Like how often has that? This was actually a big struggle for me with Dalton Kincaid and like fantasy this year, and his very aggressive ADP is like, how many times has that really worked? Like it's when you have Kelsey and Gronk,
Kelsey.
Like, yeah, but for the most part, that doesn't really work. And I think they can kind of move away from him as like the lead receiver, and I think actually simplifying the receiver rotation, because if you look at like their route per dropback rate right now, nobody's over 68%. Khalil Shakir is the most at 67.8% in terms of route participation. Yeah. And it looks very much like the Chiefs did at the beginning of last year. By the end of the year, it was, okay, Rice is over 80%. Travis Kelce's over 80%. MVS is high up there kind of doing the sacrificial X stuff. I think they kind of need to shave out a lot of these pieces here. Even what's his name? Terrell Shavers was running a decent bit of routes. Like MVS running up a decent bit of routes in this last game. We need to just like get Shakir, get Coleman. In my opinion, I think like we need Samuel on the field. So like, let's get him. Like I know he had the turf toe and stuff like that. And I think that's probably why he's not on the same page, because he did miss so much time. But like we need to get these guys on the field and let them all grow together and kind of cut out some of the ancillary stuff here.
Totally get it. I'll leave it with, I even looked at personnel stats just for that reason. I think their best personnel grouping right now is 12. Even if defenses match you with nickel, it doesn't matter. Just find ways. I think the run game's good. They have good runs, but you can't just go, all right, we're in jumbo now. All right, yep, get ready for a run. All right, now we're in 11. All right, now we're in jumbo again. Like that it feels very how the Bengals felt a few years ago, where everything's very siloed depending on what the personnel grouping is. But the last stat I had was 32 plays out of 11 personnel, which is 3 receivers. They averaged 3.4 yards per play, 22% success rate. They only had 7 successful plays. They had 9 plays out of 12 personnel, averaged 10 yards per play, 56% success rate. I know there's a lot of variables that go into this, that it's not just run more tight ends, but it's like, it's pretty obvious when Khalil Shakir is out, you need to just keep the tight ends on the field. Even if Dawson Knox could be iffy and Dalton Kincaid maybe isn't as high, they're at least decently reliable. So also the end sequence, chucking the ball 3 times, like,
don't know what that was all about.
I love Josh Allen. He goes vroom. I'm excited to let him go. He can create an explosive play, but sometimes you just got to play fundamental football. Just play the situation, meaning just run it 3 times. I know that's not sexy. I know you want to win games, but yeah, that really pulled. Oh my God, just second. Like they gave back to him with 7 seconds, 3 timeouts, and it's like they could run anything they want, and they did. They got even closer. But yeah,
we're throwing shots to Matt Collins. I mean, what do you want to do?
Oh my God, I know. Matt Collins got benched on the Falcons last year. That they'd rather give routes to Van Jefferson and Scotty Miller.
Jefferson and anyone watch the Steelers offense recently?
Yeah, that's I know no one watched the Falcons last year, but he was there, and I was excited too. But he's a great special teamer, great dirty work guy. You don't want him getting more than 2 targets, 1 target a game. All right, so going on to, I mentioned this team a minute ago, but another team that had aspirations this year, and that's the Bengals. I think the Bengals offense, yeah, you're good, you're fine, you guys got it, efficient, explosive. All my worries are gone. Burrow looked like a machine on Sunday. The offense is a lot of fun to watch. I mean, pay those guys, figure it out, because that's the strength of this team. Because you look at the Bengals defense, who are bad, and I really don't feel like I have to add any other word there, that they are bad right now. But when you watch this Bengals defense, Matt, do you think there's a Band-Aid or gauze or any ailment fixer that you can give this defense, or are they broken for the rest of the year and this is going to be a bunch of 40-point shootouts involving the Bengals?
No, they're broken for sure.
Yeah,
they're definitely broken. So they're always kind of banged from a structural perspective here. And like, I think we know the story with the Bengals is like, they've tried to supplement that defense with some draft picks that just haven't really totally come to fruition. And, when this defense was cooking, right, when Lou Anarumo was like every football hipster's favorite coordinator. They had so much flexibility in the spine of the defense with the linebackers, with the safeties. That group has just really gone to rot at this point. And I mean, even guys that have played well for that team, like Jermaine Pratt, I don't think having a great year this year. They're like the guys that have played a lot of snaps for this team are not kind of given their best football. And then again, like we're dealing with injuries, undeveloped players, things like that. We kind of knew that was going to be the issue. But then you look at them from like a defending the deep left and deep right area of the field. They give up the 7th highest yards per attempt. Like even some of these perimeter corners, like aren't necessarily playing that well. So it's just like we've got issue on issue on issue here. I don't really, and by the way, they can't rush the passer either. So they just don't have any sort of like, okay, yeah, our middle of the field coverage isn't great, but like our perimeter coverage, we can lock guys up there. So maybe we dedicate more resources to flooding the middle and closing up the middle. Can't really do that. Well, our pass rush is really great. We can lean it, man. That's not really up to snuff either. Go watch the Jaden Daniels tape from that game. So it's just, I don't really see a solution here. And it's pretty problematic for a team that obviously wants to be in contention, but I do think we'll end up just going down as one of those like carnival teams that, man, the offense put up a lot of points, but it's because they have to, because the defense is giving up so much on the other side.
I love that. The Carney team.
Yeah. That is a shout out to Scott Pianowski on the fantasy show. Always would say over the years that there's one team every year that's like the fantasy carnival, which is just the offense is absolutely kicking ass, and it's great because every time they get into a game, they're going to have to kick ass because that defense is getting steamrolled on the other side. As
someone that grew up with the early 2000 Vikings and then worked with the Falcons with Matt Ryan, Roddy White, and Julio Jones, and they couldn't stop a cold. These are type of offenses type of team structure after my own heart. I trust me, when my dad got fired with the Vikings and he went to Jacksonville after, and the Jaguars had those kick-ass defenses. I was not used to that. I was like, they didn't score here? We're screwed. Oh my God, we got the ball back? We just won 17-13.
Did the ball back? It wasn't like 10 minutes later. What are we doing here?
It was like, what the heck? We just give up 5 explosive plays on one drive. Oh my God, this is great. So I kind of know this formula a little bit, but yeah, I really do feel like they're pretty broken. Like last year, they gave up a ton of explosive passes, tons, just every week. Doesn't matter who it was. Play action, drop back, just screens, just explosive pass. Now they can't stop the run. Just to add it, can't stop the pass or the run. What can you stop? You can't rush the passer. I do a combined success rate and explosive play rate. People are trying to bully me, calling it sex rate. Yeah. So sex rate, the Bengals defense, 39.9% is the sex rate. Okay, just for context, league average is 51.5%. They're dead last. They've allowed a successful run on 53% of designed runs. Okay, the Ravens right now lead the NFL at 51%. They turn every run game. I know they played the Ravens, but they played 4 other teams. They let every team, whoever runs it on them, turn into better than the best run game in the NFL right now. Doesn't matter who it is. They have Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry against this run defense. When they get into base defense, they allow 60% rushing success rate for offenses. Easily dead last. League average is 39%. Giants are second to last at 52%. No one else is below 50 or above 50, I should say. So they basically let every run play, when they get a bunch of linebackers on the field, every run play turns into Mahomes, Josh Allen, Purdy stats at their MVP levels or the high levels when they have these fake stats. That's what they turn this run game into. They're predictable, which is what Lou Anarumo's kind of calling card is that on third down especially, is like you get some funky blitzes, you get fake blitzes, droppers, all this stuff, drop 8. Right now, they're kind of telegraphing everything, so it doesn't even make that interesting. They're not beefy up front. Trey Hendrickson is a good pass rusher, but teams are just running at him because now they're not scared of anybody else either. So yeah, it's hard because I don't know. It's not like where it's like, well, they could stop the run. They just got really shore up third down. It's like, no matter how you parse this defense, they're bad.
They tried to stop the run against Baltimore and actually for a while kept the dam from breaking, but then Lamar
pop.
Kept, it was like, oh man, Rashad Bateman's making plays on you. All 3 tight ends are dropping bombs on this defense. So it's just, that's when I think you really are kind of just banged from that point.
Yeah. And I've seen Leonard Rumo's scheme enough that I know he could dial stuff up. Like it's always so week to week with him, but this was this is the first time I really feel like it's personnel. Like they just don't have an answer because of who they have. The last stat I'll give is that the Ravens trotted out 1 or 2 receivers on 2/3 of their plays last week. So they're in 11 personnel, only on 1/3 of their plays. They allowed 399 yards when the Ravens had only 1 or 2, over 8 yards per play when they were in 12 or 22 or 13 or any big boy personnel grouping. So
Charlie Kolar is like making every Mark Andrews fantasy player hate their lives. Those who are still holding on, because it's like, oh, big white tight end catching passes. Nope, just somebody named Charlie Kolar. So do you think the Bengals can still go to the playoffs though? Like with this formula, which is crazy to say because right now they're 1-4. But
yeah,
if they are the carnival team and like you look at their next 4 games, Giants, Browns, Eagles, Raiders. I mean, they could definitely win some damn shootouts against the Giants and Browns and the Raiders, right? So you come out of that stretch. You know, let's say they're 3-1 there. They lose to the Eagles, which even then I don't know if I totally feel that. Like you're probably not going to win the division. I don't think you're going to beat Baltimore, but like, you know, Steelers, we'll talk about them maybe at the end of the show. But like, it's just, I think they can sneak in here. I don't know if it's like a true Super Bowl team, but I think maybe they could sneak in.
I mean, I would say, like, really, I could say, so like, even look at the back half of the year. Okay, Titans is interesting, but even the Titans offense, it's like, all right, it's not the scariest thing in the world. Levis might give you one. Cowboys, but it's not like the Cowboys of last year, you know, so it's like, just even look at their tough matchups. So if they had one more win, I'd be like, oh yeah, totally. You know, just the math
1-4
sense.
is tough.
1-4 is tough. That's really what it is. But they're going to be in every game. This offense is really, really good right now. It's efficient, and Burrow's seen the game really well. So he got a little weird the first couple of weeks. Now he's back to it. Now he's actually pushing the ball a little bit. So I don't know. I think they're going to be in if other things get wacky in the AFC. Like they could sneak in as a 9-8 team though. Like so I'll say that the team totally isn't broken, but just the defense is, but they can overcome it. Points are fun. So maybe just win some shootouts. They get a couple turnovers. Like you can create that. Like that's just how every game's going to be. So yeah, they definitely could be in it. We are going to take our last break, and then we'll come back with a couple more teams for Band-Aid or Broken and wrap the show up. All right, we are back. We're going to hit some more total team stuff as opposed to maybe just units, but it might be unit focused. We are going to go on over to the NFC. In the NFC West, that is the San Francisco 49ers. Division favorites, conference favorites, are now 2-3 after losing to the Cardinals in a pretty entertaining game. There's some cool plays on both sides of the ball. So when you look at this 49ers team, they're 2-3 and I believe 3rd in the division. Do you determine that they are broken, or do they need some Band-Aids to patch up some of these woes right now, Matt?
Dr. Harmon is definitely calling in a specialist on this one. Like I actually want to hear what you have to say first on the 49ers, because I could kind of talk myself into a pretzel on this. So I want to hear. I know you have notes on this. So you tell me first.
Okay, I'll start with the defense. Yeah, teams are just going to keep doing this where they trot out big boy personnel with tight ends and make them match with linebackers. We talked about this plenty the last few weeks. Teams are going to keep doing it. The Cardinals had 12 and 13 personnel on 29 of their plays. They got a 52% success rate. 10 of their 16 runs were successful. 6 explosive plays, and teams are going to keep doing that. Trot out linebackers. We're going to gash you, and they're going to. And then I would feel better about it if they didn't. If you just look at the other contenders in the NFC, look at the Lions, the Vikings, the Packers, even their division, the Rams, the Seahawks, the Cardinals. Look at that. Like every division, it's like, well, every team can do this though. So that has me worried. That is I think is broken.
Yeah.
They cannot defend out of big boy personnel, and I think teams are just going to keep daring them. On the other side, the offense, there is, especially in the red zone, Christian McCaffrey-sized hole. And that is not just the run game. That is the pass game too, which is part of CMC's talents. This is where they miss him the most. Last year, Christian McCaffrey was the most targeted player in the NFL in the red zone. Jordan Mason this year, I believe, has 1 or 2 targets in the red zone. And you can see where this crops up because the 49ers like to get an empty when they're in the red zone. Empty's a lot better when the running back is a valid receiving threat, because then the defense is like, well, we can't do man. We can't. You can see defenses are like, oh, Jordan Mason's not CMC. We don't really have to worry about that. There was a play early in the game. Purdy had to break out a contain. He threw the ball away in the red zone. It was a choice route to Deebo Samuel. Deebo's in the backfield. Jordan Mason split out as a receiver. 49ers do this all the time. CMC's split out. Deebo's in the backfield. Gives a lot of tells with the defense. Really makes them antsy. Can't run man coverage because they might run it. All this type of stuff. Jordan Mason on this play, it's a choice route. He runs a crosser. And then Deebo runs a choice route, sits in between the two defenders. Technically, the read on that play is the crosser 1, choice is 2. But it's a primary is the choice. So usually quarterbacks just shortcut and get there. On that play, Purdy bypasses a wide open Mason, goes to the choice route, has to scramble, throw the ball away. I'm not saying like, oh, Purdy's not reading it out. I am saying that if CMC is in there, he's looking at CMC, and that's a wide open touchdown that walks in. Next red zone sequence. They go empty. Jordan Mason runs a whip route, which is out and in. Linebacker doesn't even like guard him because he's like, all right, whatever. Like they're not throwing him the ball. So he helps out and makes it all clouded onto the side over there. So again, it's just that because they don't feel that threat, there's repercussions about what the 49ers want to do once they get in really inside the 15-yard line. Once in that low red zone inside the 10, when they want to get to these passing concepts where CMC is so good at this feel and opening other guys up, it's not happening with Jordan Mason. And also Jordan Mason just as a runner is solid, but he still misses some holes too. So there's some meat left on the bone, I think, in the run game right now. I think they'll be fine. I think they'll still score points. They'll still be okay. It's just that without CMC, there is some venom lost in this offense, and they have to find some maybe new answers, especially when they get inside the 10 to punch it home, especially if they have their kicker hurt because they definitely have to score too. That doesn't help either. But I really do think that passing game wise, that is what they're missing because it takes away a big element of what they've been doing for like the last season and a half with him. So yeah, it's broken on the defense. I think a Band-Aid on the offense. They'll find answers. Kyle Shanahan always does.
Yeah, I think that's a really well said because I do think the defense is a little bit at a point of no return in terms of like that. That's not going to suddenly become a needle moving unit. It really hasn't been for a while. I mean, well, until Robert Saleh got the shackles off from the Jets and he just becomes like a defensive consultant for this team in probably like a week. You know, maybe that helps, but I don't.
Halloween.
Yeah, by Halloween for sure. He's got the 49ers gear back on. Other than that, I don't really know that there's a lot of fixes for the defense. Offensively, this is why you can't just look at production and be like, oh, yep, we've replaced this player. Like, yeah, Jordan Mason's second in the NFL in rushing yards. He's averaging 5.1 yards per carry. Like, we're fine in the run game. You got to actually, like, watch the games and how these things play out because especially from a pass game standpoint, I do think they miss him. They're running a lot of it's a great point. They're running a lot of the same concepts without the same players. Even like, you know, Deebo, it's always a tough player with him because he's always dealing with injuries and things like that. I don't think he's looked as explosive this year as in previous years. You know, Ayuk hasn't been fully dialed in until maybe this last week coming off of the holdout. So that's another thing too, is like these guys might just take a little time. Let's get healthier. Let's get CMC back at some point. Let's get Deebo farther away from injuries. And this like might look like the unit that we want in November or something like that. That's really when the games are going to matter. But like, dude, you also can't lose close games and be 2-3 at this point. Like, so that's why I was kind of struggling with, is it Band-Aid or broken? Because I'm generally not in like panic mode about the offense or any of these players, but you know, little things start to add up in a season. Like, we lost the game because we couldn't kick. We lost the game late to the LA Rams because we weren't ready for Kyron Williams in the run game, which a little weird. You should be ready for that. I think that these things start to add up, and then, oh shoot, we're in November and like we have to be at our best. So that's kind of the hope, is that they are their best at that point. But I don't know. It's we always say it's a long season, but it starts to get late pretty early for a team with a lot of expectations like this.
It does, because it's like, where's the reinforcements coming? Usually, sometimes it's like, all right, this guy's on PUP or this guy was on temporary IR, yada yada, and they get him back off. And here it's not good too in the first month of the season when the teams already pick at it, because then it's on film the whole year, as opposed to you get caught week 10 or week 12, and it's like, okay, we could patch this up before we hit the playoffs. But right now, it's pretty obvious what teams are trying to do. That's why I could say it, because I just watch these games. I'm like, yeah, all right, they're just getting big and running right down their throat. I did a cut up of just the 49 or the Cardinals running the same zone read play, and it was just like, it was honestly like teach tape, in the sense that it was zone read, big play, zone read, big play. Nick Bosa keeps getting closer and closer and closer, and then he screams down to knock out James Conner. Kyler keeps out the zone read, gets a huge first down as they burn the clock. And it's like, yeah, teams are just going to keep doing that. They're 24th in explosive play rate allowed when they're in base. It's just, yeah, I know what they're going to do. All right, next up. I mean, I felt like everybody talked about this team this week. If I didn't know how many people are watching that Browns Commanders game, but apparently everybody. But the Browns, Band-Aid or broken? I think this was pretty easy to determine. But Matt Harmon with the Browns, is there a Band-Aid to apply here, or are they just completely broken?
Yeah, we're broken for sure. And
yeah. Yeah, we are.
Dude, we're not even broken. We're like rotten to the core, you know, like there's no we'll put this thing in a cast and we'll be good at some point. There are some obvious and serious questions about the operation in Cleveland, and to the point that like I am with everybody. Yeah, you're right. Like the loud chorus of people on Sunday on your social media feed. They're like, all right, enough already with Watson. And I did have that game up on the screen over here because I'm a sicko. It's like, and I was really curious about the Jaden Daniels matchup with Cleveland, which was fascinating. So like actually watching this game, it just, if I'm a player for the Browns, if I'm, you know, any of these guys on offense, I've got to just be going nuts at this point. It's very similar to the Bryce Young conversation in Carolina. Where it's like, yo, you cannot lie to the players. Like you can BS to everybody else, but like they know what's going on from an offensive perspective, from a quarterback perspective, like where Deshaun Watson is. And there's a small group of like very weird Deshaun Watson defenders on the internet, which I don't know why you'd want to be that person. But the one thing I'll say is that I don't think that they're just going to take Watson off the field and put Jameis in here and like, oh, we've band-aided this whole thing up. That's not what's going to happen, because there are other problems, and you know we can go into those problems too. But I always thought this was interesting, Nate, from like a football perspective. You know, the Watson, you know, addition and all this stuff is, I couldn't really care less about. Like, I hope it works out for him, but I've always thought it was fascinating from like a football perspective, you know, just seeing them go from the offense that Kevin Stefanski wants to run and, you know, like the Nick Chubb centric offense to more of a spread attack that Watson's used to, and like empty and shotgun and multiple receivers and all that stuff. I had a note on it. I'm trying to pull it up, and I'm, you know, that's probably screwing up all my tabs here, but you just look at like those plays when they go into empty. This is coming into last week, so this isn't updated for the last game, but I can't imagine it's any better. Going into week 5, Deshaun Watson led the NFL in dropbacks out of empty, and he averaged 0.8 adjusted net yards per attempt on those plays. 0.81. Only Daniel Jones, who maybe his numbers are better coming out of this week. Only Daniel Jones was lower among quarterbacks with 20 plus dropbacks out of empty, and Watson's 3.12 adjusted net yards per attempt on plays with 3+ receivers on the field is the lowest among quarterbacks that played 4 games going into week 5. So it's just like what they want to be under Watson. Like, oh, we'll just make this offense more Deshaun Watson centric. Even that wasn't working. So it's just, I know that you can do the circular arguments of offensive line and all this stuff. You know, Amari Cooper's not having a great year. I get all those things. And that's why it's just like, it is broken. Beyond the Watson stuff, it's even broken, which is troubling.
Yeah, it's a team that looks like they were built around their line and run game, not around the quarterback that they paid. And when the line is faulty and Nick Chubb is hurt and it's Jerome Ford, and then you go, oh yeah, we paid this quarterback. Why did we pay this quarterback? If he can't do, I mean, they're passing, I think, more than anybody right now. Like their pass rate's ridiculous. It's like 70% or something like that. And there's one thing to say rust, you know, coming off, and why did Deshaun Watson have to miss time? Oh, I know. But a couple of years ago, when he finished the year for the Browns after they signed him, he played against the Saints at home, and it was just terrible weather. I think it was really windy and cold that day, which happens in Cleveland. I don't know if you heard that. But on that day, he literally couldn't throw a spiral. And I remember tweeting it, and I was at the time going to go, hey, I'm going to see how this experiment goes before I say like, hey, this isn't looking good. So I gave it time. That's how he's looked. A guy that can't throw a spiral, as opposed to maybe looking better. He looks slow. His arm looks weaker. He looks like he has no idea what the play is being called, even though he gives in the huddle. There's just a lot. He doesn't have answers right now. And the quarterback is the most important position in football. It's not the only position, but it is the most important one. The ball's in his hands every play. If I'm his teammate and I know this guy's not working, like, why should I run hard over the middle and get my head knocked off? Why should I block a little bit extra for him? And you can see that with the Browns, and it's not even just the offense. Watch the Browns defense against the Commanders. First quarter, they are taking it to them. They are playing hard. They're playing fast. They got hit with one deep play. Jane Daniels had a really nice play out of structure, but they're playing tough. And then they got a pick later in that drive. But just they're really taking it to them. Then you see that their offense is not doing anything. And you can see guys just stop rushing, stop, fitting up gaps in the run game, trying to go for kill shots because they want their highlights. They don't care. They're not playing fundamentally sound. It's the human element. When you're wasting snaps and wasting your time, these guys have careers that they have to think about. And that's what's something with being a quarterback that I think people, Tom Brady's doing a really good job of emphasizing it. I also thought he did a really good job this weekend. They're very improved.
I agree.
Way to go, Hall of Famer Tom Brady. Football. He's really good at it. But he kept emphasizing, he was talking about Kyler Murray and talking about the responsibility of being the quarterback, that you want more on your plate because, I am the franchise. And, as the play-by-play guy's like, oh, yeah, you are the franchise running. And you can tell Tom's like, no, I was. Like, that's why I wanted all that. But you're paying me this money. I'm the guy. With the Browns, with Deshaun Watson, you can tell he's like, this ain't me. I don't want any of this. If I'm paying you guaranteed money, you better be taking some ownership of this offense. And that's what's so frustrating. It's just not even frustrating. It's just like sad to see. Just all these guys that are just giving their time and energy and bodies to this game, their hearts to this game, and they know it's for nothing because the quarterback's really not doing anything. So just what you said, Amari Cooper having a slow season, watch him break the huddle. He just breaks the huddle slow. He just does not want to be there. He's just like, whatever. He trots out.
Was it like Watson, week 2, I think it was, where you even see him like rolling his eyes coming out of the huddle? And this is the thing. I know that it's so easy to say like, well, look what the offense did with Joe Flacco last year. Look what like Amari Cooper did with Joe Flacco last year. He had like a 250-yard game. Yeah, exactly. Like this guy knows he doesn't suck. Like, he should catch some of these footballs and stuff like that. But the human element can like not be understated here. And it's like, if all of us in the media or all of us watching the damn games on Sunday know, hey, it's been the same product ever since he's arrived there. Yep. Like, well, the players know that too. Like you said, it's like, well, we're not coming back in the fourth quarter or whatever against the Commanders because this guy has never showed us that he could be that player.
And players know more than anything. Players know when coaches are frauds. They know when their teammates are frauds. And that's why you got to read you don't want to be a armchair psychologist, but it's pretty out there when you watch this Browns team. And even when like Watson throws a good ball, it hits Judy in the face mask and he drops it. They have no margin for error because the quarterback gives them none. Even when plays are dialed up correctly, he's not looking the right way. He's jumping up in the pocket, trying to create something. And it's like, what are you doing, man? That's a clean pocket. Just like throw it. Just throw the ball. But that tells me that he doesn't know where the answer is because he's probably not studying. And it's just all of it. It just looks so listless right now. And it's not really fun to watch. But so
it's not fun to talk about either.
Broken.
We just talked about it for too long.
Broken. If you weren't trying to, if you needed me to emphasize it, they're broken. All right, we're gonna go with the last one real quick. Cowboys. Just general Cowboys. Band-Aid are broken with them right now, even though they're coming off a win with the Steelers.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about them even though they're coming off of a win because I feel like the tone and the sentiment around Dallas is still pretty negative. I mean, I know that game went on way too late for those of us on the East Coast, but like I'm friends with a bunch of fans who are Cowboy fans, and they're all like, we're going to sleep in the second and third quarter. Like we suck. Like we're not staying up for this.
We got to watch the Yankees.
No comment. I know some of my friends might listen to this show, and they're not Yankees fans. Okay. I will defend these particular people. The rest of Cowboys Nation, a whole different discussion. But I just wanted to point out that I actually thought, like going back and watching the film, and specifically, like watching a guy like Jalen Tolbert in this game. Yeah, I felt really good about the Cowboys offense coming out of this game, and I think it's worth pointing out because I know that like Dak had some of the interceptions and stuff like that. It was a weird game where like he threw them into a little bit of a hole that you don't want your like $231 million guaranteed quarterback to throw you into, but like also showed, well, that's why you pay him $231 million. Like he can shoot you out of those situations as well. I just thought like this is a great stat that speaking of Cowboys fans, my podcast producer for the fantasy show, Colin, sent me. This Dak Prescott's weekly tight window passing rate is so far this year. Week 1, 25%. Week 2, 21.1%. Week 3, 35.3%. Week 4, 22%. Week 5, 11.9%. 98th. It was very a lot of the things that we said about the Jets offense, like structurally, conceptually, like some of the ISO routes and things like that. That's present in Mike McCarthy's offense in Dallas. But I also thought they did a really good job with some of the tight ends, like just quick motions to create a little bit of leverage, like using a guy like Jalen Tolbert in the slot on like 30% of his routes, using CeeDee Lamb. You can always tell when the Cowboys like, all right, we got to get serious here on offense, because they just put CeeDee Lamb at X receiver.
Yep.
And I've talked to CeeDee Lamb about this a lot over the years, about how much of a burden he carries, and because he plays all three receiver positions, even to the point that I remember the first time I had this conversation with him, he's like, "Thank you for saying that. Like, thank you for pointing out like how hard that is." In addition to the fact that he is a guy that then, okay, I can just go out there and play X receiver. But that creates the burden on the other players to then know all three receiver positions. And I thought that was impressive with Tolbert going out there and playing a little bit of flanker, sometimes playing X, and doing some slot receiver stuff, and being just, he's not an explosive player, but fundamentally sound, getting open against zone, and some of the ways that they use those tight ends, not really Ferguson, but like some of the ancillary players to create a little bit of that leverage. I thought it was a really good Mike McCarthy game against a tough defense. And that was, for me, coming out of this feeling like, okay, they actually did, like, talk about Band-Aid or broken. I think they've already found some of the Band-Aids, which is encouraging to see.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. I think even how their offensive line's playing with the young guys. I know Guyton's not always perfect. I know he got banged up too, but Cooper Beebe is playing fine. Like it's not a true glaring weakness. It's actually like, I would say it's more solid. You know, we'll see what happens with Guyton and stuff, because Tyler Smith had a kick out there. But going against that Steelers defense, we've talked about plenty. That's not an easy out. Like they're going to make it hard on you, and it felt hard. But again, that's why you have Dak Prescott making some good throws, some hero throws, especially. He had a 1-against-2-man, I think, to Tolbert. No, it was Turpin, right down the middle of the field against 2-man. That's a hero throw. Those are the hardest throws you can make. 2-man is why defenses are a little scared to run 2-man right now, is because so many quarterbacks can run. But if you can't run, they're going to run 2-man on you, because then they could just double cover basically everybody. And to be, as a quarterback, you either have to throw a deep out to the field, or you have to throw a seam ball with a guy on the guy's inside hip. And that can do that, which is, again, that's why you pay these guys.
You're throwing that to Turpin, who looks, I mean, not to be disrespectful, but like he looks like a middle schooler compared to some of the other players on the football
usually
field.
It's Ferguson or some good player that you do that to. That was the Gronk special for Tom Brady for years in two spots, Patriots and Tampa Bay. Everybody ran 2-man against the Bucs because you knew Tom wasn't running. Yeah. You know, he was just going to be chilling back there. So the Steelers offense was a nice little mouthwash, I think, for the Cowboys defense. I do need to kind of review that game. I was on a TV copy for that side. I watched the other side of the ball, but I'm a little scared of them going against teams like the Lions. But I do like this offense. I think the offense has answers. Maybe some more Hunter Lepke in the yeah, he is. He's just a football player. He might be getting a couple more carries. I think they have him as a protection back right now, so maybe some more touches to him. But like you said, felt better about the passing game. I love the CeeDee Lamb at X talking point, because that truly is their like, hey, change it up. Window dressing. All right, here we go.
Yeah, we don't have any other answers. We don't have that many good players other than him. Well, let's just throw him at the hardest receiver spot, because like why not?
Such a good point too with the guys.
And he's so good at it too. That's what I mean. I get it. He's a matchup advantage as kind of your slot receiver, and like, I mean, you put him in the slot and
win no matter
have him run a slant route. Him and Dak are gonna all year long. They did it literally all last year. That was like the most money connection was Dak and CeeDee on slants. But damn, like you put the guy who beats press man coverage at an extremely high rate, you throw him out there at X receiver, and you don't mess around with, like, I don't know, freaking Brandon Cooks out there. And I know he's on IR now too. And it's like, yeah, that way that you are not having diminishing returns with a player like Tolbert, who I do like what I see on film. And like, I do have some very, very, like, just look under the couch cushions, just a few pieces of Jalen Tolbert stock left over from that draft.
No whisper takes.
No, yeah, well, might be whispering about that one, but yeah, like you're not getting diminishing returns like using a player like that at X, and it allows you to
player.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, that just to tie it together. Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought up Tolbert too, because yeah, he did have some nice moments. They're putting it together. They're such a weird team, man. I feel like I'm just going to talk about them so much, but that's why we have this show, because we can. And I'm sure people at Yahoo love us talking about the Cowboys, but
that's right.
But we've got the Cowboys and the Jets. We're covered. We'll be closing it out today on Football 301. That was a ton of fun. Checking some wounds around the league. Charles will be back on Thursday to preview Week 6. I'm Nate Tice. You can find me at Nate_Tice. Also find me on Yahoo. I'll have some articles this week. Matt, where can they find you?
Yeah, Matt Harmon _BYB on the social media.
Yeah, bring your own ball. So subscribe to us, the Football 301. Follow us, rate us. I'd like to see, maybe ask a question in one of the reviews. I'll steal one of Mina's bits. Ask a question in there. Yeah.
Pro move.
Maybe I'll answer one or two of those. They'll jump you to the top of the list. You can follow Yahoo Sports on Snapchat as well. Make sure to send in those mailbag questions. Like I said at the top of the show, Football 301 mailbag at yahoosports.com. I'll be answering a couple of those with Charles. Thanks to Brett Stonati behind the scenes. Thank you to everyone for listening. I'll see you guys on Thursday.